Hello and welcome to Breakfast All Day. I am Matt.
I'm Christy.
And Alonzo is the camera operator because he did not see Dark Waters.
Alonzo, are you going to catch up with it? Tonight.
All
Very
right.
exciting. Have some coffee beforehand. Have some kind of caffeine beforehand. Oof. Yeah, this is a snooze.
Yeah, this one this is kind of tedious. You want to describe what it's about?
This is Todd Haynes, Aaron Brockovich. In the simplest terms, it is.
Or let me be clear. Aaron Brockovich.
So yeah.
Wait.
So it tries to, similar to Aaron Brockovich, and that is a gross oversimplification. I realize, and I'm doing that on purpose. But like Aaron Brockovich, it tries to get its arms around this really complicated topic, and a story of environmental impact and documents and lawyers and things that would not seem to be inherently cinematic. And what that film had in a powerhouse performance from Julia Roberts and Albert Finney and just it brought a complicated subject to life. This does not have in any way. And there is a tediousness to it. And you should feel like simmering rage and outrage and indignation over the atrocities depicted in this film. And there's just sort of from the performances to the way it's shot, there's a smothering kind of gray sameness. It is shocking, by the way. All the things that make Todd Haynes a fascinating filmmaker, like none of them are on display here. I feel like really anybody could have made this. And he's working with Ed Lockman, who's his usual DP, who has shot like Carol, for example. And as vibrantly, richly hued and tactile and immersive as that film was, this is kind of distancing and kind of cool, and there's a bland bleakness to it that never allows you to truly get into it.
Yeah, as I was watching this, I was thinking, boy, this movie, and I liked The Report, but this movie makes The Report look like Fast and Furious.
I mean, it looks like Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, exactly. Part of the challenge is, so this is based on the true story of this lawyer, Rob Bilott, who
played by Mark Ruffalo,
who studied or who worked at a firm that primarily did corporate defense for chemical companies, and he knew the law inside and out
in Cincinnati.
Because this farmer get referenced by Bilott's grandmother, he kind of takes on this client who's complaining about his cattle dying,
played by Bill Camp,
and spends the next 10 years fighting DuPont, who was basically dumping the waste from Teflon into the environment. I mean, spoiler alert, like we already know all this happened.
And this is based on a 2016 New York Times article called "The Lawyer Who Became DuPont's Worst Nightmare."
Right. And the challenge, one of the things that I think does the idea of making this a movie a disservice is that everybody, having read that article, everybody talks about how Bilott as a person, the real person, was very, very, very low key and very, like, one of the quotes in that article is, to call Bilott understated would be an understatement, right? And Ruffalo kind of approaches that role that way, and he's an understated performer anyway. And so it really does kind of suck a lot of the drama out of this movie, which is unfortunate because even like there's a scene where one of the better scenes in the movie where Ruffalo as Bilott is going through the list of like, here's what DuPont did. Here's all of the stuff that they, all these stories about how they knew what was going on. And it is disgusting and infuriating. And it's like, why is this so low key?
And also,
right?
but the flip side of that is that to depict him otherwise would be completely inaccurate. Right. If that's who this guy was, that's how Ruffalo has to play him. And that's a challenge from a performance perspective. And there's not a lot there for him.
Right. It's unfortunate because this is a movie that does cover something important, which was that, for decades, DuPont knew that it was putting dangerous chemicals out into the environment. They absolutely knew. And a decision was made by the company to keep that as quiet as they could because there was too much money in Teflon. And even once it comes to light, the way the company goes through fighting the different lawsuits is also very sketchy. I mean, very, it's one of those examples of like, this is why we can't have nice things, right? And it's just tedious.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because it covers an important subject.
From the beginning, there's kind of some hope though, that there will be some suspense, or at least like a visual kind of palette that is engaging when you see the flashback to the 80s, I want to say, and these kids are jumping into a pond or river,
which then never ever gets addressed again.
Right. What happens to them? They jump into this body of water, pond or river, something like that, to go swimming, to go like skinny dipping at night. And there's a boat that is pulling up that is, dumping chemicals in the water, and they see these kids with their flashlight, and they're like, "Hey, get out of there!" And the way it's shot, of like their legs underwater in the murky water, it's gross and it's like tangible. And never again is there any level of suspense like that from like that point on.
I kept thinking they're going to come out of that water and they're going to be like the guy that falls in the toxic waste pool in RoboCop, where then he gets up and he's all like half melted. I was like, no, that's not this movie.
Yeah, and then there's almost an interesting kind of subplot with Mark Ruffalo in that he's constantly trying to get away from the fact that he is from rural West Virginia, and he wants to be the big city attorney in Cincinnati, and he's the underdog from a small town taking on the big guys, and again, because there's just like this sameness to his character,
right.
You don't feel the power of that motivation. Anne Hathaway plays his wife, and she gets really truly nothing to do. At one point, when he is in the hospital, she wants to know what's going on here and says something like, "Don't treat me like I'm just the wife." Because she had been an attorney herself before she,
right.
Quit to raise their kids. They have 3 boys. But the movie treats her like she's just the wife anyway, because she doesn't get a whole lot to do besides like nag him about why he didn't go pick up the tile samples because he's too busy, fighting
right.
the corporation. So she does not get a whole lot to do. There is one scene that has a bit of a life to it where Mark Ruffalo confronts Victor Garber as he's the attorney for
he's
DuPont.
The in-house attorney for DuPont.
And it's like this fancy black tie gala, and everyone's being very polite, and it's the clatter of silverware and glasses and
I do like
banter.
leading up to that scene when I think it's his assistant, Ruffalo's assistant, says it's black tie. That doesn't mean dark suit.
So yeah, he clearly doesn't fit in there anyway. And then the confrontation that they have, like everything stops. It's just silent. And so there's some excitement sporadically here or there, but for the most part, it feels like a wasted opportunity. And you can see why Mark Ruffalo would want to be a part of this story. This is clearly an issue that's important to him. It's all he tweets about is environmental issues and earth issues. And Tim Robbins is in it as well as his boss, who's like the founding partner of the law firm he works for.
Or the managing partner.
Right. You can see why Tim Robbins would want to be a part of this. This is clearly important to him as well. Bill Camp is always good, but this whole thing just feels like Bill Pullman's in it. Mare Winningham is in it. It's an interesting cast of supporting players, but the whole thing is just such a slog.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because again, like if you start looking at the list of what DuPont was doing, and knowingly, like they knew it was dangerous and they were trying to cover it up, and people got sick and died over it, and they kept covering it up. Like when you go through that list, you're like, oh my God, what a giant bunch of assholes, right? And the movie has, like, it just makes it boring to sit through, which is too bad, and I somewhat wonder, like, expanding this out to a feature length might be tough. Like you're almost better, 30 minutes of like, here, you could do, like this week on corporate assholes.
It could be an episode.
Right. Could be an episode.
A standalone episode. And then it ends with some like full screens, some title cards about, what happened after the end of this movie.
Everybody's got this shit in them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so, but even the way they depict that feels really standard to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, So I don't know if it's a missed opportunity because I don't know how you could make this more exciting, but I'm not a filmmaker, so.
But Steven Soderbergh did.
Yeah, we did.
20 years ago.
And again, like I think that the report was better than this, and again, somewhat covering some of the same thing.
Right.
Like, oh, I got to go through. I mean, it's almost the same
a lot of
story,
documents.
Right? Like, oh, I got to go through thousands and thousands of pages. All right, roll my sleeves up. I'm going to do that.
And that's actually one of the more visually compelling segments of the film is when he decides to sue DuPont and they're like, we're going to discovery the shit out of you and we're going to bring you thousands upon thousands of boxes so you're just drowning and you're inundated. And the way they shoot that and the way he's undaunted and just picks up a box and starts going through stuff. So like that is a forward momentum moment of the film in which there aren't that many and there should be. Anyway, I'm saying 4.
Yeah, I said
4.8.
Well, I said 4.75, but you made me round up.
We rounded the show. So 4.4 is our number. It's at 92% on the tomato meter. And I wonder what that's about. I wonder if that's like a lot of 2.5 star reviews.
Or it's a lot of people saying eat your vegetables.
Yeah, it's a lot of polite reviews. But I was disappointed in this.
Yeah, or maybe people legit like it.
Maybe. And we
did not.
We did not. And that's okay.
We didn't.
Do the spiel.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. You can follow us on all of the places at
Be Fast All Day.
And join our Patreon or else.
Our Patreon is super interesting.
Right, the or else is you don't get to see us talk about The Mandalorian and The Morning Show and His Dark Materials and Watchmen and other cool stuff. So you should join. It's
Thank you
cool.
for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with us.
Bye.
Bye.